Hey everybody, it's Aaron here with Robert, and welcome to Get Your Geek On's mid-season review of The Last of Us.
Yeah, mid-season review slash spoiler discussion.
Yeah, oh
Because
yeah, that too.
we are gonna spoil, obviously, for fans of the game. This is based on, I think, 2013
Oh God.
game The Last of Us. And it's been adapted into the HBO series of the same name, starring Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey as Joel and Ellie. And so we're going to talk about the first 5 episodes that are out currently. And obviously, we're not going to spoil where things are going.
Right.
Aaron has played the game. It's one of his favorite games. He
Yes.
knows where it's going. Although the show has, taken some liberties, it's changed some things. But I
It,
think what's been really impressive about this, and you'll have to speak to this more than I can, is that it seems to really be keeping the spirit of the game, even when they make some changes, even when they, alter some character beats or even, some locations and things like that. It's not losing what made the game so special.
exactly. And it's really not. The heart and soul of this is still there, which is something I'm happy for. We've gotten adaptations of video games before and into movies and TV shows, and we've seen it where it's a soulless entity to make money. We've seen it to where it's just garbage, and then we have stuff like The Witcher, like Last of Us, that are doing amazing, that are holding up to what it came from. Yes, everything differs because I think at the end of the day, even though as a fan of the game, as much as I want to see the game in there, I want to see it told in a movie, I do want some different stuff because again, it's not
Yeah.
I don't want to see the same thing because if I wanted that, I'd just go play the game again and die 100 times as Joel while I'm trying to
Yeah.
do something.
And I think that's really the important takeaway to think about is anytime you're doing an adaptation, it's like, okay, what is the purpose of this adaptation?
Right,
It's okay, we're obviously, we're soulless Hollywood. We're here to make money. So they
right,
they made this because they want to make money.
right,
But ultimately, when you're looking at why are we adapting something, well, it can be to get more eyes on it. It can,
right.
but ultimately, it's like, what are we trying to do? And the best adaptations are the ones that are able to take the source material and elevate it, and
Hmm.
maybe it's do something different with it. But maybe it's just it's enhance it, it's change things. And one of the big changes with this is obviously in the game you're encountering a lot more scenarios of action, a
Right,
lot more where either you're fighting off infected or you're fighting off people. There's a lot more conflicts that you're coming into because it's an action video game. You're not going
right.
to have, a 5-minute conversation between people, or you're not going to have a scene where they go off camping and we see their, hey, how did they get to sleep that night? I mean, it's
Hmm.
like that's not the type of thing you put in a video game because that's not interesting in that
Right.
format. Whereas in a TV show, one of the things that has been really impressive is they've expanded out on all of the things that again we see glimpses of in the
Right.
video game. They've deepened these relationships, especially with these side characters. Specifically with like Bill and Frank, and
Hmm.
really diving into their backstory and seeing who they were. And they did change that ending that they got
Right.
from the video game. And so, some people may not have been on board with that. To me, I thought it was a really beautiful representation of, finding something to love. I mean, that's one of the
Right.
things in the video game and in the show, that we have the fireflies, and they're saying is, when you're in darkness, look for the light, right? Something like
Hmm.
that. And that's true of a character like Bill, who, even though he was a survivalist and he was prepared for the apocalypse, he was prepared to survive. He was never
Right.
really prepared to live. Like, that's the difference. Is what was he doing? He was just surviving. Was he doing
Hmm.
anything special with his survival? No, he was
Nope.
just surviving. And it wasn't until Frank came into his life that he had something worth living for, right? and
Right.
and seeing that, the progression of the relationship, seeing all of that, and seeing the way it ended with him not only choosing to go out on his own terms, but also recognizing that this was his purpose. This is why he was here. And it's also really bittersweet to think about. That's something that he would have never gotten if we hadn't gotten the apocalypse.
Right.
Bill would have never become the person he becomes if the apocalypse hadn't happened, which is true for a lot of these characters. I mean, we have the character of Joel, who gets completely hardened by the events of the outbreak day and the 20 years that follow. And what's been really cool about this first 5 episodes, and what I wanted to really make sure we talked about, is we've seen him start to soften at the same time we've seen Bella or Ellie start to harden. Right, she is in the show, when we first meet her, yes, she's capable. She's not a damsel in distress, but she is very kiddie. She's, excited about being outside. She's playing around in the hotel. She's telling jokes. She's all this. And by the end of this episode, in particular, the end of episode 5, where we have what happens with Henry and Sam, she is really starting to be worn down and beaten down by the things she's experiencing by the world. And you can see Joel is really, he's just started to open up. He's just started to really transform. And now you can see he doesn't want her to lose that innocence. And I'm super excited for where the rest of the show is going to go as they continue encountering these horrible things in the real world. And Joel is going to try to help her maintain her sense of innocence while knowing it can never come back.
Right. And like we said, this is spoiler territory. And this game is almost 10 years old at this point. Well, actually, it is 10 years old in June because it came out like he's 2013. So I want to make one comment, because you're right. We're getting that crossroad where we're getting one softening and one hardening. Eventually, they kind of meet in the middle, and they do go past each other. I will say that based upon the video game.
Yeah.
And there is one scene in the game it's the end of the game where Joel also has to make a loving and caring decision. I'll try to stay vague on it for anyone that wants to go play the game, but that decision is something that's going to impact the world. And you play, like you said, it's an action game at the end of the day. So we get the whole action scene, which we may or may not get in the show if they do that. But at the end, we see him go back to being the father that we see him at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
And I hope we get that, because the game doesn't really give us a whole lot with his daughter. We get the same scene of, oh, how'd you get the watch? Oh, I sell drugs, hardcore drugs. And we get some of that. We get some of it, but the show gave us a good, maybe even 30, 40 minutes of the daughter. And we built this love, this connection with like a family, with the uncle, with him, with her. And it's like, okay, we built that up, and they made me care for her. Where in the game, of course, as a gamer, we see the cover. We don't see the daughter. We're like, oh yeah, she'll be dead. She'll be dead now. Yep, there you go. We kind of knew it was coming. And even in the show, it's coming, because it's going to harden Joel. So I like that we're going to get that. We got that he goes back to being that dad. And I hope we do see that, and they're doing that progression perfectly, that I think we'll get that ending. And I hope we do, because it was such a touching ending in the game, that I hope we get that. But where we're at now, like you said, we got a Joel softening a little bit, but we get Ellie just becoming a little bit darker, a little bit colder. With every episode we're seeing, I think it was episode 3 where she shoots the guy in the back.
No, that's episode 4.
Episode 4.
Episode 3 was Bill and Frank's episode. So
that's right. That's Bill and Frank's. So episode 4, where she shoots the guy in the back, and he's dying, essentially. Let's face it, he's going to die.
Oh yeah.
But he's like, just go behind that wall, because then he has to kill him.
I mean, at that stage, Joel is, he wants to protect her from the horror, and that's a beautiful callback to Outbreak Day with Sarah. He was carrying her, he was shielding her, he was don't look. And obviously he wasn't that way with Ellie in the beginning, but now he's getting to that point where he's going, oh, I don't want her to have to lose her innocence. I don't want her to have to do this thing. And it's too late already. Like, she's going down this pathway. But I think one of the things that I think is just great about this show is it's presenting a lot of characters and then giving them someone either that they've lost or that they gain. If you look at somebody like Joel, obviously he lost his daughter, and what happened to him because of that, right? And we
Right.
see him 20 years later. Then you look at characters like Bill and Frank and what Bill gains by having Frank come into his life, and we see the transformation that happens with him. We look
Right.
at this character of Kathleen, who is not, the group is in the game, but Kathleen as a character is not someone in the game, so this is new
Right.
for the show, and presenting her through this lens of just having lost her brother and what that means to her and what he was to her in the direction she goes,
Right.
having lost her brother. And then we see Henry and Sam, and we see the reaction that Henry has when Sam is taken away from him. And I just have to say, like, this show, whether it's the beautiful ending of Bill and Frank that,
Right.
can move you to tears, or whether it's the completely heartbreaking ending that Henry and Sam get,
Uh,
moving you to tears. I mean, just the all that sense,
it
and looking at Henry, I mean, that scene in particular, and we just had it, so this we're talking about it, but that scene where obviously his initial reaction is, I have to protect my brother from Joel. Like, so he grabs
right.
the gun, I'm going to protect my brother, and then he has the momentary realization that his brother is gone
Right.
and is attacking Ellie, and so then he pulls the trigger, and then he has it hit him again. My brother is gone. Everything
This is
I
what
have
happened.
done, everything I have done is for him,
Hmm.
and now I've lost that. And so just seeing again, we saw Joel get hardened by the loss of Sarah. We saw Bill get softened by the gain of Frank. We saw Kathleen get hardened by the loss of her brother. And now we see Henry, who just can't even live with himself.
No.
And taking that moment, and I mean, I don't know that actor's name, but he did a phenomenal job in that moment.
Let me see.
And when he took his own life, and we get the reactions again from Ellie and Joel, Pedro
Yeah.
Pascal and Bella Ramsey just doing a phenomenal job. And the kind of button on this episode, and why this really felt like a natural place to talk about the show, because we'll obviously do a season end review as well, is
Right.
just again where Ellie is at the end of this episode, where now she leaves that little "I'm sorry" on their graves, and
Hmm.
now she's going to Joel, let's go. Like,
She
she is
doesn't. She's
clearly no
getting there.
longer the innocent child who's excited talking about, oh, flying in airplanes, you got to be in the sky, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Or the girl who's telling pun dad jokes. Like,
Right.
she has reached a point where they've lost Tess. They've
Right.
they've lost now Henry and Sam. She didn't meet Bill and Frank in this iteration. I think in the game she does meet Bill.
She beats Bill in the game. Yeah.
Yeah. And so obviously she's not necessarily seeing that, but she's seeing these things that have happened. She's had to shoot that guy, as you mentioned, these types of
Hmm.
things that have really started to harden her. And by the end of this episode, leading into the second half of the season, she is at this point where she's really starting to get disillusioned with the world, but also
It's
has that resolve, maybe, as we saw
right.
her try and save Sam. Is she going to really have this strong resolve now, not just like be a tool that other people are using, but be driving the story of curing this infection?
Right. And that's the thing where I mean I want to kind of backstep too. Like Sam and the Henry thing hit hard. By the way, his name is Lamar Johnson. That was the
Okay.
actor who played Henry.
Yeah.
And it hit hard, especially because, like you said, she puts the "I'm sorry" because what happened? She accidentally infects him. To me, because it's, well, I don't want to say she did. I don't know how to word that though.
I mean,
But
he got bit during the attack.
yeah, and it's the whole, like, if I give you my, it makes me just wonder, like, did she speed it up though? But then I
Did she
forget we got
accelerate
the
it?
time. We already got a time frame for it, right? Like they say how long it takes earlier in the show.
Yeah, I think
So
it was like 12 hours or whatever it was,
yeah,
from time of bite. So I don't know if that I haven't looked at that timeline to know if that's the right timeline for getting bit on the leg.
y-
Um,
yeah. So, but
but
it just makes you wonder, like, did it speed it up? Because it didn't help, obviously.
it did not.
So she's a girl. She's a little kid, I should say. She's trying though. She's trying everything. It's like, what's the first
Yeah.
thing? Well, I mean, I'm immune. Maybe if I just give you blood, you'll be immune. It's a touching moment because, like you said, one, she tried. She was still trying to like be there for them,
Hmm.
and just meeting them. And again, the way episode 4 ends, I meet you with a gun pointed to my head, like, hi, you know.
Yeah.
And we get the connections, we get all that build up. That was another sad scene for me. This game in general, the series in general, was really sad because by the time we get to the second game, Ellie's almost a cold-blooded killer by the
For
time we get
sure.
there. So it's like I'm seeing that and I'm like, okay, when we do, are we going to do a season 2? Because if so, she's going to be a cold-blooded killer at the end of it. So how is that going to work? Like, I'm curious on that part. But the story's
Well,
being told.
and
Oh, go
that's
ahead.
what's so interesting is if you were to flip this story around its head and we were following Kathleen, let's say,
Right.
would we view her as a villain? I mean,
Yeah.
she's part of this, resistance trying to overthrow this fascist government, and
Right.
her brother gets betrayed and killed,
Right.
and now she wants to catch the people who are responsible for that. And so it's one of those things where you go, if we just flip this around and we were looking at it as she was the protagonist that we were following around, wouldn't
What?
she be our wouldn't she be our hero? Wouldn't we be rooting for her? And that's where, again, we get into these really gray areas with Joel and Ellie
Mm-hmm.
as they are on their journey, is like we're following them. And so we kind of view them as, our heroes and our protagonists, but that
Right.
doesn't mean they're always doing the right thing. And so to your point, we're seeing Joel become more of a good person, heroic, recapture his humanity. So that's
Right.
an easier journey to swallow because
Right.
we're rooting for him and he's making progress. Whereas with someone like Ellie, we're starting to see the cracks in the
Mm-hmm.
innocence. We're starting to see her harden. And so maintaining, that connection with her and really wanting her to make the right choice and be heartbroken. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I know it's different, but think of like Walter White in Breaking Bad,
Right.
where the further you go on the journey into that dark side, the harder it is to root for you. And so it'll be really interesting to
And
see where the story goes. And again, I haven't played the game. I don't know the
right.
spoilers. I don't want the spoilers, but
Which
I'm
is why
really
I try to
just
stay vague.
the show itself
It
is just really powerful,
it
and it's
is.
been really good through
You
five
know,
episodes. Like it's got a couple of episodes in here, especially the Bill and Frank one. I mean, the opening episode, the Bill and
mm-hmm.
Frank episode, and definitely this last episode with Henry and Sam. I think those are three of the strongest episodes of television I've watched in the last few years. Like they're just
Right.
so good.
And they really are. And I want to go back to what you were saying about Catherine. Uh, Everything. I actually, take a step back. I think your wife said it, Kristen. Why is it that everyone's always mean to each other, or why is everyone always the villain? Why is everyone always bad after a zombie apocalypse? Because the zombie apocalypse, the zombies are there just to help push a storyline or get characters where they need to go. Like, oh, we're safe in this house. Okay, they've been in this house too long. Zombies all of a sudden can break in.
Yeah.
That's all the zombies are there. And that's, by the way, the clicker in this one, that boomer, or I think it's called
The bloater.
the bloater. Yeah.
Well,
Oh my God. Did you see how they make that, by the way? If you
oh
ever
yeah,
get
I
time
did.
to check all
I
that.
gotta just call out though the little kid one that's like the
Oh,
contortionist. That's just I was
yes, the
like,
gymnast. Yes. The clickers in this show right now are amazing. Like the first
yeah.
time we saw them was cool, but these two just blew it out of the water. We got a gymnast who's a contortionist. She's like 8 years old or 9 years
Oh
old.
my gosh.
Then we got the bloater that they showed like the full detail of how many hours they put into this thing, and then you get the special effects added onto it.
Hmm.
That's how you do horror effects, by the way. You add particle to
Yeah.
real life. So anyway, moving forward, the whole point though, like going with what your wife had said, they're there to push it. And I was thinking about what you had said later on, and even today after watching that last episode the other day, it's not so much in what you said too. It's not so much that everyone goes evil, but it's everyone feels that they are the hero in their own story now. And we're
Yeah.
seeing how everybody is going to react to it. Like I mean, my kiddo goes, trust me, I'm probably gonna go straight up villain, but I'm still think I'm the hero because, well, I'm trying to eliminate everybody. Where someone, if my kiddo's alive, I may go a different route with it. Or if my family's still alive, I go a different route because it's like I
Well,
gotta protect.
that is the point, and that is the point of this show, and what it's doing really well. And most apocalyptic stories are some version of this, which
Right.
is how do we maintain our humanity in a world that has gone to shit.
Right.
Right. And that is, that is what this show is exploring so beautifully. And to me, it's distilled in the
It's
episode with Bill and Frank. It's
right.
right there for you, where you so okay, surviving, but what are we surviving for? And so
Hmm.
Bill is a representative of humanity. It's like,
Right.
yeah, maybe as humanity we can survive,
Right.
but what's the point? Why are we surviving? And it's
Right.
not until we get that connection, and that person in Frank that draws out Bill to appreciate art, to
Right.
have a love in his life, to have
Right.
human connection. And that's what we're surviving for, right? So we're not
Exactly.
just here to survive, we're here to live. And Ellie represents the ultimate hope. And
Hmm.
can we regain this? Can we get to this point? And seeing her as the ultimate hope, corrupted and
Hmm.
hardened and all that stuff, I mean, that is what this show is all about,
And that it
and
is.
that's why it's amazing. I
This
love
show
the
is
show,
nailing
and
it.
I'm just so excited. It has already been greenlit for a season 2, which I'm
Yep.
very excited for. I'm very happy to continue watching this show and continue on this journey. I think it's easily one of the best shows on TV in the last several years, and I've just been enjoying it immensely.
And I agree with you. I think out of all the zombie stuff, I mean, we know I love zombie, I love horror. I think this is one of my favorite zombie storytelling things. This is, again, we have a new take on zombies with the clickers, how they react to everything. It's not just, what's his name? George Romero zombies from the 70s yeah,
Yeah,
70s.
Night of the Living
God
Dead,
dang,
all
that's getting
that. Yeah.
old. Just like think about how old that is versus like World War Z zombies. These are something different, unique, but
Mm-hmm.
the story is touching enough. The story brings us back to the human element and the humane society, the humanity we should all have for each other. I feel like,
Yeah.
and that's where we're at. I'm excited to see where it goes. I hope though it doesn't end up like The Walking Dead, which just dragged on and on and on. For me, I lost interest. I hope they do the second season, cover the second game, and then be done. Like we got an amazing show, and
Yeah.
we could be caught from there because I just want to follow Joel and Ellie. I know where it's going to lead to. You don't, so I'm not going to say what. But let's just say it's going to be fun if they do this second game. But on that note, guys, let us know down below what you think of the game, what you enjoyed from it. If you enjoyed the show, where do you stand? Does the show do better than the game for you, or are you enjoying the turns and twists that the show has versus what the game had? Because I'm enjoying all of it as someone who's played it and is now watching it. So I want to know what you guys think. But on that note, check everything out at official GYGO at Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, etc. I'm Aaron, and that's Robert. Stay geeky and get your geek on, guys.
Bye.